Hello, and welcome to World Water Week. Nature-based solutions offer a huge range of multifaceted benefits to small island developing states, especially in face of the impacts of climate change. However, despite all of these benefits, a green wave of bankable nature-based solution projects are yet to sweep across the small island developing states. To have a closer look at what's needed to boost investment, I'm joined today by a wonderful panel. So we'd like to first introduce Dr. Petra Dankers, who's from the Royal Haskoning DHV. She's their leading professional on nature-based solutions and is an advisor on morphology and eco-engineering solutions. We also have Danilo Cansado, also from the Royal Haskoning DHV. Danilo is a business development director for the climate resilience for Latin America and the Caribbean. And Beauty Mbale, who is the freshwater program lead for WWF Zambia. Very welcome to all of you. Thank you so much for joining us today. Petra, help our audience get up to speed here. Tell us a little bit more about the importance of nature-based solutions and particularly their role or their potential role for small island developing states.
Yes, well, let me first start by explaining nature-based solutions and their merits. And I'm using the IUCN definition here. So nature-based solutions are actions to protect, conserve, restore, sustainably use and manage natural modified ecosystems in order to tackle societal challenges. And at the same time, they also provide multiple benefits. So if implemented well, they really can help in sustainable economic development. And because nature-based solutions are designed to fit within the natural system and the socio-economic system, you inherently get more climate resilient solutions. Now, if you look at the small island development states, these islands are particularly vulnerable to climate change. And there are several reasons for that. So first of all, they're small islands. Secondly, their weather systems are quite challenging. But furthermore, we also see that a lot of ecological degradation has been going on for a long time. A lot of land conversion has been going on. And there's been a serious lack of investments for over a very long time. And this all has led really to, the ecological deterioration of the entire system. Actually, the natural buffer against climate change has disappeared. Now, nature-based solutions can really play a pivotal role in restoring this buffer. But that means that serious investments, strategic investments, are needed. That starts with proper planning. So you need to place the right kind of nature-based solutions at the right location. And for that, we need guidance, so proper guidance and real-world, large-scale examples.
Okay, wonderful. I mean, so I hear a very clear call for you for that guidance, but also a call for greater investment. Beauty, I want to come to you next. Petra has clearly just outlined that need for investment. The UN has also called for greater investment, of 4 times more investment coming into the sector for nature-based solutions. What are the limitations to this? Why aren't we seeing that investment?
So, and I would speak from a landlocked country perspective, but we have seen that most of the limitations are actually general. Mm-hmm. One of which is basically that there is a very small, if at all possible, or if in existence, a very small pipeline of actually quantified NbS that is investment ready. Then also on the other side, for organizations such as mine, WWF, it's basically that to get financing to actually build that pipeline is also very challenging. So the financing to build the pipeline is difficult, but then also to actually have an investment-ready pipeline is difficult. Petra mentioned the fact that these NbS are site-specific, so it's not one size fits all. And because of that, NbS, the process of actually having a very successful NbS is a very consultative process. So you need a lot of stakeholder engagement. But then also sometimes it's very difficult to measure to quantify the actual benefits and so be able to turn into quantifiable cash basis or investment basis. And that is further exacerbated because of data gaps as well as other limitations.
Thanks so much, Beauty. I mean, you talk about that small pipeline of NbS that are investment ready, and I think another term that we've often heard for this is bankability, right? That ability to put those bankability behind these projects. So, Petra, I'm going to come back to you on the topic of bankability. It's not a new challenge when we come to NbS. We've been talking about this for a really, really long time. Can you tell us a little bit more about why this persists? I think Beauty already touched on it a little bit, but what's changing also to bring greater financing to nature-based solutions?
Yeah, we indeed see that really the large-scale takeoff of nature-based solutions doesn't really happen yet. So, of course, that's the issue of trust and belief in the solutions, but we can tackle that because there are multiple examples, and we need to showcase that. Then there's also the issue of institutional challenges, because nature-based solutions are multifunctional. Sometimes the institutional settings can be really hampering. And then, of course, there's the issue of the financing. That's a difficult one to tackle. You have many different stakeholders, many different financing opportunities, but you really have to combine that and look also for blended finance. But what we see with the financing is that, of course, the cost and the benefits are not equally distributed. So someone else is paying for the benefits of someone else. And what we also see is that actually the large-scale investors, they are residing in a completely different world than the people that are developing the projects. Investors typically want large-scale, ready to invest bankable projects. Well, in the engineering world, we generally design smaller projects based on more local questions. So you see there's this mismatch in size that we need to cover. And there's a lot of communication and discussion needed on that. Well, what can help here is, of course, to have more performance data. That really helps in the discussion. For instance, in the Netherlands, we're working on the NL 2120 program. It's one of the world's largest knowledge development programs in the world on nature-based solutions, and it's tackling these issues.
Okay, so I hear very much that call for performance data, as you said, and to bridge that gap between the ambitions of the engineering world with those of the investment world. Danilo, Petra has very clearly talked about the need for that blended financing. Can you tell us more about what this might look like for nature-based solutions in small island developing states, and particularly where you're coming from?
Yes, of course. I think as my colleagues already said, first of all, we need to increase investments in nature-based solutions. A recent report from UNEP tells us that by 2050, the investment needs in nature will reach $536 billion. Which is 300% more than the current financing flows for these solutions. So blended finance can be a very important instrument to help unlock these investments in nature-based solutions. And why they are important? They are important because they bring advantages in de-risking investments, in increasing the bankability of projects, but also attracting and mobilizing more private sector capital to these solutions. SIDS, as many other countries in the world, they are facing the impacts of climate change. In a situation where countries already have limited budgetary and fiscal resources to invest in addressing basic needs of the country, climate change puts another burden into the countries and their ability to finance the implementation of these projects. So we need to help countries in prioritizing investments in nature-based solutions where they are needed the most, in the right location, but also in bringing more finance into these solutions. One of the challenges is that some of the SIDS are classified as higher or upper middle income countries. That means that they have less development assistance funds and also concessional finance for the implementation of the solutions. So we need to think about innovative approaches such as green, blue bonds, carbon credits that can help bridge this current investment gap. Two examples of these solutions are one of them, a company that is called the Green Guarantee Company, which is investing in issuing guarantees for climate bonds. Currently, today, they have already a commitment from the Green Climate Fund for 82.5 million investments. We focus in SIDS and addressing adaptation mitigation needs. Another example is the Tropical Asia Forest Fund, which to date has already invested 170 million in sustainable forestry measures, including, for example, FSC certification. So there are different solutions that can be applicable in different contexts, and I think concessional finance can be a very instrumental tool in addressing the current investment gap in nature.
Thank you so much for that. So I hear about concessional finance, but also just a wide variety there of tools that could be available that need to be mobilized. These
Yes.
different kinds of financial tools that need to be mobilized. Beauty, I'm going to come back to you. You know, you're sitting with WWF Zambia. You are, I think, probably best aware out of all of us on this panel, you know, the limited capacity that some of these communities have to borrow further funds and to borrow further from markets. How can this be addressed? How can we tackle this more efficiently to make sure that these financing tools that we're talking about here can actually be made available?
So Danilo mentioned a key component, and you will find that some of these countries are actually countries that are also tackling with the debt. Okay, and so it's very difficult for such countries to then also start thinking about, you know, further borrowing and so these are also some of the ideas that we have also engaged, for instance, the government of Zambia for instance, alternatives such as the debt for nature swap. Danilo has mentioned some of it, because then it's structured in a way that it's longer. The terms of repayment are actually quite longer than your usual financing or loan you would have. But then also the emphasis is on restoration, on sustainability and climate adaptation. Another key aspect is also the targeting for instance, adaptation funds. So, for instance, the UNFCCC, the UNEP, and AFDB, there was a recent call for proposal back in Zambia, I think like 2 months ago, for financing. Those are financing opportunities that are quite good. However, I must also mention that from experience, what we've noticed is that the appetite for such, you find that the proposals that they receive, for instance, AFDB had indicated that they had not received as much the proposals as. So also, I think it's also having the ability, the capacity to be able to have teams that can then also apply for this financing. Blended financing is one of those, because then in as much as you've got the public financing, you also then put in the philanthropic, and then finally then you can maybe persuade the private sector to finance, because then at least the risk is spread. So I think the bottom line is that we constantly need to look at the financing that's outside the box. So for instance, during the COP28, we now know that the loss and damage funds would be available as and when. Should that be possible, that is also a very possible line of funding that we can then look at, because then it speaks directly to climate variability, and in a way, it speaks to how can we then build resilience, and NbS is actually the solution.
Okay.
Maybe to add to
Please.
that, so leveraging private capital and adding grants can be a way to go there as well. Of course, you need to have you need to discuss this with the investors. And what can really help there is tooling, such as the Bonaire tool that we made together.
And I think we're going to put an image up on the screen about the Bonaire tool.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. So this Bonaire tool or tooling like that really helps you in understanding your system, understanding what's going on. It helps you in finding the right type of nature-based solutions, and it also helps you really in the discussion with the stakeholders on the funding and the possibilities.
Great, brilliant. I mean, it sounds like we've come a long way in terms of this discussion over the years. I also hear very clearly from Beauty the need to not only make these tools available, but to also ensure that those on the receiving end of these funds, or those who have the opportunity, who we want to have the opportunity to benefit from these different financing tools, need to also have the support to be capacitated to be able to access them. And I think that that's also a really important point. It's not just about making sure the funds are available, but making sure that the different communities have the capacity and the ability to leverage them. It's been a really fascinating discussion so far, with so many opportunities highlighted and so many different trends, I think, in the different financing opportunities available. I'd like to hear from you a little bit about where you see stakeholders needing to take this forward. Who do we need to bring to the table to strengthen this action, particularly within small islands, developing states? And how do we get to a world where we have better backed nature-based solutions? Maybe, Danilo, I'm going to start with you.
Of course. I think, first of all, we need everyone working together. So it's not an issue of public institutions, it's not an issue of NGOs, private sector separately. I think everyone needs to work together to identify the solutions that will address the current needs of a specific country, of a specific location, and then be able to together develop the right approaches that will be able to tackle these challenges. If that means also implementing a certain solution in a certain way, yes, but also bringing the financing for it.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for that. Beauty, I'm going to go to you.
So NbS begins at a local level, and so I think those the communities themselves are very important, because at the end of the day, the implementation of NbS starts there.
Yeah.
But if we're also looking to upscale, and that is what really we need to, we have pilot projects, but at the end of the day, we need to upscale. We need to bring on board the financiers, and they can only come on board if we have conducive environments. So governments are also quite critical in this process, because then you will have bottom-up approach, but then you also have at the top conditions that are favorable for investment.
So bottom-up approach, but also the favorable conditions for investment. Thank you. Petra, please.
Yeah, I think that all stakeholders really need to take steps here. We need to communicate and we need to understand each other better, because we know that the finances are available. We just need to get the projects there. So that means we need to look for large-scale, landscape-scale, multi-solution projects in which we combine nature restoration and nature development with high-end engineering, and which we also make sure that the institutional embedding is arranged, and also make sure that we include the livelihoods. So I am actually quite convinced that if we do that on a landscape scale, that financing is definitely possible. So my advice to everybody actually would be, you really need to dream big and inspire.
Brilliant. I like that. Dream big and inspire. We need these larger programs. But I also hear very much that link to livelihoods. And I think that's in critical importance when we talk about nature-based solutions. As Beauty has so rightly pointed out, these are incredibly local projects that we're talking about. And we have to put those communities at the core of what we're doing. But we also need the financing to help us get us there, so we do need to ensure that they are attractive solutions, attractive projects that we can bring forward to different financiers. I'd like to thank you all so much for joining me in this conversation. It's been absolutely enlightening. I take away a lot. I also take away very much what Beauty was saying, that while we're talking today about the small island developing states, these are not unique situations. These are not unique learnings, and that even though we are talking about small island developing states, it's very valuable to have landlocked Zambian perspectives here as well. We're also very excited to see how these different channels or these different funding opportunities might materialize in the future, and how we continue to access them, but also bring forward the capacity, that enabling environment, as Beauty has rightly pointed out as well. Thank you so much again to our dear panelists for your time and for your insights today. Thank you very much, dear audience, for joining us, for you those here in Stockholm and online. Thank you. Goodbye. Great. Thank you. It's always those very awkward few moments at the end.